Hey everybody, welcome back to the NC State Insider Podcast. I'm your host and lead beat writer for NC State on SI, Tucker Sennett, joined here by my assistant beat writer and good friend, Mr. Daniel Rios. Daniel, before we get started on today's episode, just got to ask you how you're doing.
We're doing good as always. Sports world is moving, but we got some interesting things to talk about today. A little bombshell, if
We
you
sure
will.
do. We sure do. We got our first look at the NC State men's basketball ACC conference schedule. Some exciting stuff in Will Wade's first year controlling the program, running the program, bringing this program back. It's an exciting time in the triangle, an exciting time for sports at NC State. It's going to be a pretty electric year under Will Wade. I mean, it already has been electric. Just the energy within this program is totally different. Um, this is a roster that's been completely rebuilt through the transfer portal with some serious talent, some guys that Dan and I even saw play covering Arizona State because he brought in a lot of talent from the Big 12, as that is a really strong basketball conference. So just just a lot to take in. I figured, since football, it's a lot of me asking Dan questions, so we'd flip things today. Dan's gonna ask me some questions because basketball is my thing, and I'll try to take you through this ACC slate the best you can. So Dan, what do you got for me?
Yeah, so first off, just what do you think are those tough road games, those hostile environments that you kind of see that this team will face the biggest challenge in?
Yeah, I mean, the ACC flipped from a 20 game conference schedule to an 18 game conference schedule. So those road games are a little different than usual because you only have two opponents per year now that you're going to see twice. So some of these road games, it's a one and done. You're not gonna have any film really of your team on their team, which makes things tricky. So, for me, the ones that stick out in conference play, you got a tricky road trip early in the season to Clemson. That's part of a 7 games in 7 games out of 10 where you are not playing in Raleigh. The Wolfpack start the game or start the conference season with back-to-back games at home, and then they kind of go all over the place. So Clemson, has been a tournament team most of the last few years. They brought back some talent from last year. However, this is a team that Will Wade beat in the first round of the NCAA tournament last year with McNeese State, with a lot of with I think Alan Breed didn't play in that game. I think he was already hurt, but Quadir Copeland was massive in that game for McNeese. He was like a whirling dervish on defense. I'm sure you remember that, Dan.
Oh yeah, don't that ruined my bracket early. Won't
Yeah,
won't
yeah,
won't lie.
yeah.
Uh,
So Clemson brought back some of the key figures. Obviously, the chef is gone. He's playing football for Clemson now. That's a wild story,
yeah.
but definitely an intriguing, difficult matchup early in the conference slate there. That'll be January 20th or the 21st, depending on how the TV schedule pans out. Another one that stuck out to me is a road trip to new ACC member, or this will be their second year, SMU. Um, that's February 3rd or 4th. Andy Enfield is just he's always going to have talent on his rosters. I'm sure you observe that, being from Southern California and watching
Yeah.
USC basketball. You know how Andy Enfield works.
Yeah.
He's a guy that always has athletes and talent. And I don't know much about this SMU team this year, but that's a tough test. It's a new venue for NC State. I think there's some juice in that program with Andy Enfield at the helm. Could be tricky. Then probably the toughest road game of the year in terms of conference play is going to be a February 9th trip to Louisville. They're going to Louisville's sort of the dark horse in the ACC that a lot of people think could sneak out of, being fourth or fifth and end up winning. It's Pat Kelsey's second year there. They brought back some key pieces. They got a forward coming back from injury. I forget what his name is. Let me find it for you. But that is not an easy place to play, and that is a team that feels like it can do. Kayshawn Pryor is the guy's name. They also brought in Isaac McNeely from Virginia, um, who is certainly he's a dude. He's a dude. They have some dudes on this team, and they're experienced, so they could pose some problems. That'll be a very interesting experience on experience matchup. So that's what I got in terms of the road games.
Yeah. And I think, you touched on it a bit, but that, Clemson game I think is going to be really fun. Just kind of going against them and, he's already beat them with McNeese State. Like
Right.
that one's going to be fun. And yeah, I think, you know, looking at it, just kind of the home games too, you luck out a little bit with, having the host North Carolina and Duke. That will be a little bit of a luck kind of basis there. But how do you feel like the travel situation is going to kind of be for this team?
Yeah, I kind of touched on it a little bit already, but they have that stretch where they're going to be away for 7 out of 10 games, which is sort of why they play a lot of home games in the non-con. Um, so they kind of combated that way. It'll be tough. There's no West Coast trip, which is big. They don't have to go play Cal and Stanford. And they're actually only playing Stanford at home, and they don't play Cal because that's another part of the new ACC schedule system is you're not going to see every team every year. So Cal is the odd man out this year. Um, I think, you know, there's a week where they go early in the season. I think it's the second week. They go to Boston College on either a Tuesday or a Wednesday. If that's a Wednesday game, then they have to fly all the way back down to Florida State to play the Seminoles on Saturday, and that game can't get moved. And then they get a full week off. So sort of a tricky road trip. I'm not really worried about Boston College or Florida State. Florida State's sort of at the end of the line. I believe they are sort of rebuilding, and I want to say Leonard Hamilton retired. I can't remember. I think he retired finally. Yes, he retired. So they have a new coach. That was really embarrassing. I didn't want to say he retired and then have it be like his swan song season, but I was pretty sure that he had retired.
Yeah.
He's gone. So that's a rebuilding program. There's a lot of first year head coaches in the ACC. So that'll be interesting to see Wade going against a lot of guys in the same boat as him, although without similar juice. But that's really the only road trip that scares me a whole lot. There's a weird one where they play Wake on a Saturday and then they play that SMU game on either a Tuesday or Wednesday. Not super worried about that. It's getting rid of that West Coast trip makes such a big difference. And then they also do not have to go to Syracuse, which is pretty massive because that is to put it into terms that you and I would know, that was like Pac-12 basketball, ASU having to go play Washington.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
never an
That's
easy.
yeah.
It was always a terrible trip. You're going north and it seems like it's closer than it actually is. And it's a rowdy venue up there. Just to avoid the Carrier Dome, or sorry, the JMA Wireless Dome. I'll never get over
Uh,
that as a one-time Syracuse student when they changed the Carrier Dome. That was a sad day. Um, but that's just you want to avoid playing at Syracuse, and they do. They do.
all right. So with this new coaching staff, a bunch of transfers are coming in. there any homecomings for any of these transfer players on this schedule? Anything?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, one guy has a few. Van Allen Lubin
Uh,
he started his career at Vanderbilt. They aren't on the schedule. Um, he ended up playing for Notre Dame and then left there after Mike Bray retired and spent last season at North Carolina. So no Vanderbilt on the schedule, but he will go back to South Bend on February 28th, and then NC State hosts North Carolina on February 20 or February 17th. Sorry.
okay.
And then
Um, oh, sorry, sorry.
the other big kind of crossover event, not a homecoming because it's in Raleigh, but
Yeah.
Will Wade facing his old school. This is in the non-conference, but facing one of his old programs, VCU. That'll be an exciting one. And then there's a VCU former VCU coaches bowl twice. We got Ryan Odom at Virginia now after Ryan Odom, if you're not familiar, um, I'm sure you watched Ryan Odom's team beat Virginia when he led UMBC back in the day to that 16-1
Yeah.
upset. He worked his way up the coaching ladder, ended up at VCU. He's a North Carolina guy from Durham, coached VCU after coaching at Utah State for a couple years, had some success in the A10 with the Rams, and now he is leading the team that he basically made history against.
Yeah.
Not basically, he did make history against them. He is the coach of Virginia, so that is the former VCU Coaches Bowl. That's what I'm calling that one.
That's an electric name, let me tell you.
Right, right.
That moves the needle. So I kind of touched on it a little bit, but obviously Duke and UNC on the schedule. How do you kind of feel like those matchups are going to go with, this new look NC State roster?
It really helps to not have to go to Chapel Hill or Durham. You
Yeah.
don't have to play in the Dean Dome. You don't have to play at Cameron. That is huge. You're going to get both of those games at the Lenovo Center. Um, it was kind of a bummer for me. I was looking forward to both of those trips to some historic basketball venues, and now I will not get to do either. But um, certainly will be exciting to host both of those teams. And I think the calendar really works out well. You get North Carolina right at the end of February, and you're coming off kind of a cushy game against a sort of reeling Miami program that's been rebuilt from the ground up with that's a project. They're not in a rapid rebuild like NC State is. So um, you're going to have some time to prepare for North Carolina, a couple days, and I think they match up well against this North Carolina team. I really do think that, and that obviously that's on paper, but I just think getting that team at home, the hot seat situation for Hubert Davis, if they have a bad non-conference and they're once again hovering around that tournament bubble by that point in the season, I think Will Wade wants nothing more than to outclass these rivals, and
Yeah.
that could be a big signature moment in this first year. And then the Duke matchup is the second to last game of the season, also at home. Duke's a mystery to me because they got a lot of young guys coming in as they do every year, but you don't have the potency that you did last year, obviously with Flag and Knipple and Maluach. Um, those were three guys that we knew they were going to be lottery picks before the season started. And then they played like that throughout the entire season. And I would say, at least for Maluach and Knipple, they played themselves into either even higher draft stock because they were just so good. So, you don't have those guys. You have the Boozer twins. You have some important returners. I just, you know, I don't know Duke's if there were ever a year where you can get them, it feels like this is the year. I just don't know if NC State is going to be taking down Duke in year one under Will Wade, but the juice certainly seems to be more significant around this NC State program than either of the other two schools. I think North Carolina certainly has a better recruiting class than they have in the past, and they have some exciting players that they brought in. But just because of the uneasiness with Hubert Davis over the last few years, I think people are very skeptical about what they can be. And then Duke obviously is just it feels like Duke if Duke is better than they were last year, I'd be shocked. They just feel like they're naturally set up for kind of a letdown season, which probably means they'll be ranked like 10th in the country instead of fourth or first.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I can't forecast that Duke game super well quite yet. I'll have to see them play.
hmm And that's fair. It's kind of hard to, especially with those Boozer twins coming in. We don't know fully what they're gonna give, so
Right.
it's just kind of it's hard. But with all that, going through it all, what is the overall outlook? How do you kind of feel like this team will perform with this schedule that they've been given?
I mean, the non-con has such good balance of you're playing really good power conference competition. You got a home game against Kansas. You got a neutral site against Ole Miss. You got an ACC SEC challenge game against Auburn, although we don't know if Bruce Pearl is going to be coaching Auburn because he wants to run for Senate. So that's a wild subplot that's come out of that
Yeah.
camp. They're going to Maui. I just think this team's going to be battle tested come December 30th or 31st because they haven't decided which day they're going to
Yeah.
play that opener, that ACC opener on. Um, so yeah, I think they're going to be battle tested by then. They're going to have a feel for who they are. Um, the hope is somebody steps up next to Darion Williams into that scoring load and takes some pressure off of him. But if he's healthy and Van Allen Lubin takes another step, they get quality guard play from Trey Holloman and Terrence Arsenault plays up to that 5-star recruiting ranking that he had that got him a roster spot at one of the best programs in the country in Houston. This team has a super dynamic starting five. And, they have some quality guys and some wild cards off the bench. Jerry Dang, um, that kid's got a strap. I just don't know how it's going to look against actual competition, but nothing
Yeah.
like a good highlight tape, right? I mean,
Oh, I mean, yeah. Yeah.
somebody sent me his one of his workouts, and I was just like, holy cow. I can't swear on this, but I didn't say cow. I said something else when I saw it because he's just one of those like 6'9" dudes that has a little bit of a handle and just it just looks good coming out of his hand when he shoots that rock. So I'm excited to see him, but he also could be one of those guys that is good in practice, doesn't translate to games. We'll see. But overall, I'm feeling more confident than I already did based off this conference schedule, just because you have those two teams at home. You don't have that California trip that could screw up your whole vibe and just tire you out. The travel's pretty light for this team, and you just if they can finish strong in those last 5 games with North Carolina at Virginia at Notre Dame, then you host Duke and Stanford. If they go if they win one of those two Carolina and Duke games and then survive at Virginia, I think they're going into the ACC tournament with some serious swagger, some serious confidence. Um, I just I really don't see a world where they're one of the bottom three teams in the ACC again.
Mhm.
If that's the case, I, we got really big problems
Yeah.
because you can't get much worse than it was last year. They missed the ACC tournament as the ACC tournament decided to go with the 15 teams rather than the full conference, which I'm starting to think might be a good thing for some of the other conferences rather than us having to watch the 17-18 game on a Tuesday at
Yeah.
noon on ESPN plus the Ocho. So maybe we move that
Uh,
direction, Big 12, but whatever. I'm happy to watch one more Bobby Hurley game.
I'm just, yeah, it's glad to watch that.
Anyway,
God.
yeah, I think the ceiling's really high. I think this is if things go right for this team, I think top four in the ACC is very, very reasonable, and I think that the ceiling could be as high as second. I just think one of those two teams in Duke and Carolina are going to probably be a little bit better this year, but I'm feeling incredibly optimistic after seeing this ACC schedule.
There you have it. That's what you love to hear.
Right?
That's what you love to
Right.
hear. Yeah.
It's a really good time to be an NC State fan, at least on the basketball court, because the women's team has had the juice for several years now, and the men's team has some serious juice around it. So you Wolfpack fans have a lot to look forward to, and here at the NC State Insider Podcast and at NC State on SI, we will bring you all the coverage you need of Wolfpack men's basketball, Wolfpack women's basketball, and Wolfpack football as Dave Doran and the Gridiron Pack continue their season. We'll have a game day preview ahead of that Thursday night game against Wake Forest. I'll be in Winston-Salem giving you coverage from there. That's a new stadium for me, so excited to check that one off the box. And yeah, should be good. Should be good. As always, Dan, thanks for joining. Feel free to provide the fans with your social media so they can follow for your fantastic content.
You got to follow me on X, Daniel_real72. Best content out there.
It is really
Absolute
good.
best.
Really good. Check out Dan's article about Cody Hardy's blocking in the trenches. It's fantastic stuff. You can follow my personal Twitter account at Senate Tucker. You can follow the website's Twitter account at Wolfpack on SI. And you can find more of these episodes on the Sports Videos on SI YouTube channel. Go ahead and subscribe to that, watch our press conference coverage, and more NC State Insider podcast episodes. As always, thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.